She called me a mistaken address at my daughter's wedding, in front of everyone. She thought because I wore navy silk instead of a suit, I was weak. She forgot I spent 40 years as a carpenter. I don't just build foundations, I know exactly how to tear them down, too. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. The scent of old wood and roses filled the air. Wood, because that was my life. 40 years with a hammer in my hand. Building homes, building a future. Roses, because they were Mary's favorite. My late wife. The ballroom was drowning in them. My name is Allison. It took me 60 years to say that name out loud. For most of my life, the world knew me as Mark. But 5 years ago, Mary passed away. The grief burned everything else away. The facade. The lies I told myself. I couldn't live as Mark without Mary. I couldn't do it anymore. I transitioned. I finally let Allison breathe. It wasn't easy. It was brutal. I lost friends, men I'd worked alongside for decades. They stopped calling. They couldn't look me in the eye at the hardware store. I heard the whispers in the grocery aisles, the laughter. The world became a colder place, lonelier, but I never lost Chloe, my daughter. She was the one thing that kept me going, the light in the darkness. And I was terrified. I would lose her too. The fear was a constant ache in my chest. I remember the day I told her. We were sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Mary used to bake apple pies. I was terrified. My hands shook so hard. I spilled my coffee on the linoleum floor. I braced for rejection, for disgust, for the doors slamming shut. I stammered out the words, the truth that had been buried inside me for 60 years. Silence. A long, agonizing silence. Then she just hugged me, tight. "You're still my dad," she whispered into my shoulder. Her voice steady, even when mine wasn't. "I just want you to be happy, Allison." She used my name, Allison. The sound of it was liberating. She insisted I keep the title Dad. It was our thing, our little connection, a bridge between the man I was and the woman I am. A small comfort in a world that suddenly felt very hostile. Chloe was my rock, my fierce protector. Today was her wedding day, and I was terrified all over again. Not for myself, but for her, because she was marrying into a world that despised people like me. I stood in the bridal suite, staring at the mirror. The woman looking back wore an elegant, navy blue gown, modest, tasteful. Chloe picked it out. It felt soft against my skin, foreign, but right. My hands trembled as I adjusted the pearl necklace. Mary's pearls, the only thing I had left of her. My hands are still rough. Decades of sanding and hammering don't just disick. They were the hands of a builder, attached to a body draped in silk. I felt like an imposter, a fraud in a beautiful dress. "You look beautiful, Dad." Chloe appeared behind me. A vision, white lace and pure joy. Her eyes shone so bright it made my heart ache. She looked just like Mary. The same smile, the same kindness in her eyes. "You look like an angel, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I turned and hugged her carefully, mindful of the dress, mindful of the moment. "Are you ready?" I asked. "I am," she said, squeezing my arm, her grip firm, strong. "As long as you're walking me down there." That had been a battle, a war really, and the enemy was waiting downstairs, sipping champagne and sharpening her knives. Liam, Chloe's fiancé, seemed like a kind young man, polite, quiet, charming, but he came from a different world. The Crestwood world. Old money, tradition, reputation. His family valued appearances above everything else, and his mother, Evelyn Crestwood, was the guardian of those values, the gatekeeper of their perfect, sterile world. Evelyn, a woman carved from X and draped in designer silk. From the moment we met, her disapproval was a physical thing, a cold front that entered the room with her. She never used my name, Allison. She addressed me as Mark, a pointed emphasis, a slap every single time, a deliberate denial of my existence. I tried to ignore it, for Chloe's sake, but every time she said Mark, it felt like a nail driven into my skin. The first time I met her was at an engagement dinner, a truce dinner, Chloe called it. I wore a simple black dress. I felt good, until I walked into their dining room. It felt like a museum, cold and silent. Evelyn looked me up and down, a slow, agonizing appraisal. Her lips pursed like she'd tasted something sour. "Mark," she said, extending a limp, cold hand. "So good to finally meet the parent." The pause hung in the air, heavy and judgmental. "It's Allison," I corrected gently, my voice trembling slightly. Evelyn smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Of course." "Mark?" She turned away, dismissing me. I was the embarrassment, the smudge on her perfect world. I knew then this wouldn't be easy. I just didn't know it would be impossible. The wedding planning was where the real battle lines were drawn. Evelyn took control. The flowers, the venue, the guest list. It was all about the Crestwood reputation, the image they wanted to project. Then came the ultimatum. Evelyn cornered Chloe during a cake tasting. Chloe told me later, her voice shaking with rage. "A man in a suit gives away the bride," Evelyn had stated, as if it were a law of nature. "It's tradition. We cannot have that spectacle. Spectacle. That's what I was to her. A circus act. A freak show." Chloe, fierce and loyal, didn't hesitate. "If my dad isn't welcome as she is," Chloe told her, "there will be no wedding." Liam was caught in the middle. He loved Chloe. I believed that. But he was terrified of his mother. I saw the fear in his eyes every time they were in the same room. He twisted the gold ring on his finger. A nervous habit. He eventually sided with Chloe, but the victory felt hollow. Evelyn conceded, but her resentment didn't go away. It just simmered, waiting for the right moment to boil over. And that moment was fast approaching. The wedding was held at the Crestwood estate. A mansion, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a monument to wealth I had only ever built for others, never inhabited. I felt small. I felt like a smudge of sawdust on a pristine white carpet. The music started, a string quartet, expensive and precise. It was time. I looked at Chloe. She was radiant. "Let's do this, Dad," she whispered. We stepped out into the aisle, the point of no return. Walking Chloe down that aisle was the proudest moment of my life, and the most terrifying. Hundreds of eyes were on us. I felt the weight of their judgment. The whispers from Liam's side of the room. "Is that her father?" Disgraceful. They weren't subtle. I focused on Chloe, her head held high. She wasn't ashamed of me. That was all that mattered. But the whispers still stung. They always stung. I saw Evelyn in the front row, her back rigid, a steel rod in a silk dress, her eyes fixed straight ahead, refusing to look at me, refusing to acknowledge my existence, as if by ignoring me, she could erase me. We reached the front. Liam smiled at Chloe, a bright smile, but his eyes darted nervously to his mother before taking Chloe's hand, a quick check for approval. The fear was still there, a crack in the foundation, a crack I worried would grow. "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" the officiant asked. "I do," I said, my voice clear and steady, stronger than I expected. I kissed Chloe's cheek and took my seat in the front row, across the aisle from Evelyn. I could feel her disapproval radiating across the space. It was a physical pressure against my skin, a coldness that chilled the air. The ceremony was beautiful. They exchanged vows, their voices full of hope and promise. Young love. Untested. I allowed myself to relax, slightly. Maybe it would be okay. Maybe for one day. The judgment would cease. I was wrong. The real humiliation was just beginning. The reception began. The lights were low. The music soft. Champagne flowed. The atmosphere seemed to thaw. I sat at the head table, a place of honor. But I felt isolated, a pariah. Evelyn was holding court at the other end, her laughter sharp and brittle, like breaking glass. I avoided eye contact. I focused on the food, the expensive food I couldn't pronounce, anything but her, but I couldn't escape her presence. It was suffocating. It was time for the toasts. The best man gave a charming speech. Funny, heartfelt, polished. Jenna, Chloe's maid of honor, spoke beautifully about Chloe's kindness, her loyalty. Then it was my turn. I was nervous. My hands were clammy. I stood up, smoothing the navy silk of my gown. I walked to the microphone. My heart pounded against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. The silence of the room felt loud, judgmental. I looked at Chloe. She smiled at me, encouraging, loving. I took a deep breath. Chloe, I began, from the moment you were born, you were a force of nature. You inherited your mother's kindness, and my stubbornness. A few people chuckled. A warm sound in the cold room. I spent my life building things, I continued. But you, Chloe, are the most beautiful thing I ever helped create. I am so incredibly proud of the woman you have become. I looked at Liam. Your mother, Mary, would be so proud too. My voice caught on her name. It always did. To Chloe and Liam, I finished, raising my glass. May your life together be built on a foundation stronger than oak, a foundation of honesty and respect. It was simple, heartfelt, true. As I finished, there was warm applause from my side of the room. Chloe's friends, my family, and polite, scattered clapping from the rest. The Crestwood contingent. I sat back down, relieved. It was over. I looked at Chloe. She was beaming, her eyes shining with tears. And then I heard it, the sound that shattered everything. The music had stopped between speeches. The room was momentarily quiet. Evelyn placed her champagne flute down. The crystal clicked against the table, too loud in the sudden silence. She leaned toward the woman next to her, but her eyes were locked on me. A cruel smile played on her lips. The air at the head table suddenly felt thin. I saw Chloe stiffen beside Liam. Evelyn didn't bother to whisper. Her voice was sharp, carrying across the ballroom. What an embarrassing display. The words hit me like a physical blow. All that sentimentality from that. She paused, letting the disgust hang in the air, thick and suffocating. Then came the killing blow. That's not a dad, that's a mistaken address. The silence that followed was deafening. All the air left the room. I couldn't breathe. Every insecurity, every fear I had fought so hard to overcome, rushed to the surface. She hadn't just insulted me. She had invalidated my identity, my parenthood, my very existence. My face burned with shame. I looked down at my hands, rough carpenter's hands. I wanted the marble floor to swallow me whole. I wanted to disappear. But the worst was yet to come, a betrayal far deeper than I could have imagined. Then I heard a small choked sound. I looked up, praying it was a gasp of shock, of outrage. It wasn't Liam, my daughter's new husband. He was covering his mouth with his expensive linen napkin, but his shoulders were shaking. He was laughing. He was laughing at my humiliation, at my pain, at the destruction of my dignity. My stomach turned. A cold dread washed over me. A sickening realization. This was the man Chloe had married. A monster, hiding behind a charming smile. Chloe wasn't laughing. Her face had gone deathly pale, white as her dress. Her eyes, which had been filled with love moments before, were now blazing with a fury I had rarely seen. A cold, hard fury, the kind that burns bridges. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. The sound echoed in the silent ballroom, a gunshot in the silence. What did you just say? Chloe's voice was low, trembling, but incredibly clear. Every word sharp as broken glass. Everyone heard it. Evelyn looked startled, genuinely surprised. She hadn't expected to be challenged. But she quickly recovered her composure. The mask of indifference slipped back into place. Oh, sit down, dear, she dismissed, waving a hand dripping with diamonds. And it was just a little observation. Don't be so sensitive on your wedding day. It's unbecoming. Sensitive. The word dripped with condescension, as if the cruelty was Chloe's fault. An observation? Chloe walked around the table, her white dress trailing behind her. A shroud. She stopped in front of Evelyn. You insulted my father, she said. In front of everyone. You called her a mistake. Evelyn sighed, bored. I merely spoke the truth. We were all thinking it. I just had the courage to say it. The truth, Chloe's voice rose. The truth is that you are a cruel, bigoted woman. A bully hiding behind your money. Gasps echoed through the room. The Crestwood facade was cracking, the illusion of perfection shattered. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. How dare you speak to me like that in my own home? But Chloe wasn't finished. Chloe, come on. Liam stood up, the smirk still lingering on his lips. A ghost of the laughter, a stain on his soul. He reached for her arm. Mom didn't mean anything by it. Let's not ruin the night. Let's just enjoy the party. Ruin the night. As if the night wasn't already destroyed. Chloe turned her gaze to Liam. The look on her face was one of pure devastation, a heartbreak so profound it stole my breath. It quickly hardened into cold contempt. You laughed, she whispered. The accusation hung in the air. Undeniable, devastating. Liam's smirk vanished. He paled, the realization of what he had done finally hitting him. I didn't mean to. It was a nervous reaction. I was uncomfortable. He twisted his ring. The nervous habit. A nervous reaction. The coward's excuse. You laughed when your mother called my dad a mistaken address. Chloe said, her voice rising. Clearer now. Stronger. The person who raised me. The person who taught me what unconditional love really means. She looked at me, her eyes full of love and pain. And you laughed. The room was completely still. Everyone was watching, holding their breath. I saw a woman near the back wipe a tear from her eye. Eleanor Vance, an old friend of Mary's. She looked at me with sympathy, a small gesture of support in a sea of hostility. Chloe, you are causing a scene. Robert Crestwood, Liam's father, stern, authoritative. He stood up, adjusting his expensive tuxedo. A man used to being obeyed. Apologize to your mother-in-law and sit down, he commanded. This behavior is unacceptable. You are embarrassing the family. Unacceptable. Their definition of unacceptable was skewed. Cruelty was acceptable. Bigotry was acceptable. But defending your loved ones was not. Chloe looked at Robert, then Evelyn, then Liam. She looked at the glittering chandeliers, the expensive decorations, the life she was supposed to be stepping into, the gilded cage, the beautiful prison. Then she reached up, slowly, deliberately. She pulled the veil off her head. It dropped to the floor, whisper of tulle and broken promises. No, she said, her voice clear and strong, a bell ringing in the silence. What's unacceptable is your cruelty. What's unacceptable is your bigotry. She took a deep breath and addressed the room. Everyone, I apologize for the interruption. Her voice didn't waver. But there will be no wedding today. The words hit the room like a shockwave. A bomb detonating in the center of the ballroom. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Chaos erupted. Evelyn stood up, her face furious, a mask of rage. What are you doing? She shrieked. You can't do this. The marriage is legal. They had signed the papers before the ceremony. A formality, they said. The marriage may be legal, Chloe said, her voice cold as ice, colder than Evelyn's heart. But I will not be a part of this family. She turned back to Liam. He looked utterly bewildered, lost. A puppet whose strings had been cut. She pulled the large diamond ring off her finger. The Crestwood family heirloom. I cannot marry a coward, she said. The words were sharp, final. I cannot marry a man who seeks his mother's approval more than he values basic human decency. She threw the ring. It hit Liam in the chest, clattered onto the marble floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence, the sound of a future shattering. Chloe turned and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted for her, a sea of shocked faces. I quickly stood up and followed her. My legs trembled, but I didn't stop. I could hear Evelyn screaming behind us, Robert shouting threats, Liam calling Chloe's name, desperate, pathetic. I didn't look back. I just followed my daughter, out of the darkness. We burst out of the mansion, into the cool evening air. The silence outside was a stark contrast to the chaos inside. I could breathe again. Chloe finally stopped, leaning against a pillar, trembling violently, the adrenaline fading, the reality crashing down. The tears she had held back finally broke free, sobs racking her body. "Oh, Dad," she choked out. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry they did that to you. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner." She was apologizing to me. After her world had just shattered, I pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. "My strong, brave girl. Don't you apologize, Chloe," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "It's not your fault. I'm so proud of you. So incredibly proud." We stood there for a long time, just holding each other. The broken pieces of the day scattered around us. My own humiliation was overshadowed by the heartbreak I felt for Chloe. Her wedding day, her future, destroyed. But the cruelty wasn't over. It was just beginning. We went to the valet and waited for my old pickup truck, a rusty Ford F-150, out of place among the Bentleys and Mercedes. As we waited, the venue manager rushed out, a stressed-looking man. Mr. Harris. He looked flustered, pale, wringing his hands. "Miss Carter, Allison," he said. He used my name, a small kindness. "I need to speak with you. There's the matter of the final payment." Payment. The word hit me like a bucket of cold water. A new dread creeping in. "Payment?" Chloe asked, confused, her voice thick with tears. "Panama and Robert paid for the wedding. It was their gift. They paid the deposit," Mr. Harris corrected. "Miserable. But the balance, for the catering, the staff, the open bar, the roses, it's substantial." He looked down at his clipboard. "And Mrs. Crestwood just informed me that she refuses to pay it. Given the circumstances." I felt a chill run down my spine, a cold realization. Evelyn wasn't finished with us. "How much is the balance?" I asked, my voice quiet, dreading the answer. Mr. Harris hesitated. "Nearly $30,000. $30,000. I felt sick. The amount was staggering. "They can't do that," Chloe protested. "They signed the contract." "The contract states the hosting party is responsible," Mr. Harris explained. "But if they refuse, the liability falls to the married couple. And since you are—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Evelyn was trying to stick us with the bill. A final twist of the knife. Vindictive. Cruel. She wanted to ruin us. I looked at Chloe. She was already devastated, broken. This financial burden would crush her. I couldn't let that happen. "I will cover it," I said, my voice firm. It would wipe out a significant portion of my savings, the money I had saved for retirement. But I didn't care. I would protect my daughter, at any cost. Mr. Harris nodded, relieved, and disappeared back inside. We got into the truck and drove home in silence. The navy gown felt heavy on my shoulders, a shroud of silk and debt. When we got back to my small, quiet house, the weight of the day finally crushed me. We sat in the living room, the familiar scent of sawdust and old books. A sanctuary. Chloe had taken off her wedding dress. It lay draped over the armchair, a ghostly reminder of a future that never was. "They're vindictive," Chloe whispered, staring at the dress, sticking us with the bill. "They want to punish us. They want to break us." "I know," I said, tired, so tired. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was late, nearly midnight. I looked through the peephole. It was Liam. He stood there, his tuxedo rumpled, his eyes red and desperate. Chloe opened the door. "Chloe, please," he begged. "Let me in. We need to talk. We need to fix this." "We have nothing to talk about, Liam," she said, her voice cold, dead. "I'm so sorry," he pleaded, tears streaming down his face. I shouldn't have laughed. It was stupid. I was nervous. The same excuse. The coward's mantra. "My mother, you know how she is," he continued. "She controls everything. But I love you. Please don't do this." "Fix this?" Chloe said. A hollow laugh. "There is no fixing this. You showed me who you are, Liam. You stood by while your mother humiliated my dad, and you laughed." "I'll apologize to her," Liam said. Turning to me, "Allison, I am so sorry. Please talk to Chloe. Tell her she's overreacting." Overreacting? I looked at the young man who had promised to love and protect my daughter. "She's not overreacting," I said quietly. "You broke her trust. You broke her heart. Liam's expression changed. The desperation turned to anger. The mask slipped. The Crestwood arrogance surfaced. You don't understand, he hissed, his voice low and venomous. You people never understand. You people. The words hung in the air, loaded with contempt. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My family, we need this. Need what? Chloe asked, her eyes narrowing. We need the merger, Liam blurted out, frustrated, desperate, trapped. The financial merger. The paperwork we were supposed to sign tonight. The words hung in the air, heavy, ominous. The real secret finally exposed. Chloe froze. What are you talking about? Liam realized he had said too much. He took a step back, panicked. Nothing, he stammered. Just the joining of our assets. It's standard procedure. He was lying. I could see it in his eyes. The fear, the desperation, he turned and practically ran back to his car. He sped off, into the night. Chloe closed the door and looked at me, a realization dawning in her eyes. The merger, she whispered. Dad, something is wrong. Something was very wrong. Chloe was a lawyer, a brilliant one, specialized in contracts and acquisitions. She rushed to her laptop, typing furiously. What are you doing? I asked. Worry churning in my stomach. Liam said they needed the merger. She said, not looking up. That's not standard language for a wedding. That's business language. The language of desperation. She pulled up the prenuptial agreement they had signed. It included a clause about the merging of their personal assets, immediately upon marriage, including Chloe's inheritance. Mary had left Chloe a significant amount of money, and I had added to it over the years. My life savings. It was nearly $1 million. They were very insistent on this clause, Chloe murmured. I thought it was just their paranoia about protecting their wealth. But what if it was a lifeline? What if the wedding was a trap, a legalized theft? My phone rang. It was my sister, Susan. Allison, oh my God, what happened? Susan's voice was frantic. Evelyn is telling everyone that Chloe had a mental breakdown. She's threatening to sue you for the cost of the wedding and the angel distress. She's the one who refused to pay the bill, Susan. I said, my voice tired. I know, but you need to be careful, Susan warned. Evelyn Crestwood is powerful. She can ruin you. Maybe Chloe should apologize. Maybe you should try to smooth things over. Smooth things over, I said, anger surging through me. She called me a mistake, Susan, in front of everyone. I know, Allison, but sometimes we have to compromise. Susan pleaded, don't antagonize her. She's dangerous. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. Susan's words echoed in my mind. Was I putting Chloe in danger? I looked at Chloe. Chloe, maybe we should just let it go. Pay the bill. Move on. We don't want to fight them. Chloe looked up, her eyes blazing. Let it go, she said. Dad, they humiliated you. They tried to manipulate me. They think they can treat people like dirt because they have money. I will not let them get away with it. She turned the laptop around to face me. Public records, financial statements, news articles about Crestwood Enterprises. They're broke, Dad, she said. They are drowning in debt. Their latest development project failed. They leveraged everything they had, and they lost. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The merger, it wasn't about joining assets. It was about absorbing yours. Exactly, Chloe said. They needed my inheritance to stay afloat. They needed it to secure a massive deal that is supposed to close tomorrow, a deal that would save their company. The wedding wasn't a celebration of love. It was a hostile takeover. They were going to use you, I whispered, horrified. They thought I was naive, Chloe said, her voice cold as steel. They underestimated me, and they underestimated you. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories like this to light. Because what we did next changed everything. A plan began to form. A terrifying, ruthless plan. What are we going to do? I asked. We are going to stop that deal, Chloe said. And we are going to destroy them. I hesitated. Chloe, this is revenge. Your mother always taught us to be kind. This isn't revenge, Dad. This is justice. Chloe said. They attacked our family. We have to fight back. I nodded. Okay, what do we need? The carpenter was ready to demolish. We need proof, Chloe said. We need the documents that show the true state of their finances. The internal documents. How do we get those? I asked. Liam kept a backup of all his files on a secure server, Chloe said. He gave me access when we were setting up our joint accounts. He probably forgot to revoke it. She started typing again. Within minutes, she was in. We watched as the files downloaded. It was worse than we thought. Embezzlement, tax evasion, shell companies. This is enough to send them to prison, Chloe whispered. But I want confirmation, Chloe said, scrolling through the emails. I want to know who knew what and when. She drafted an email. There's a junior analyst in their finance department. Ben Carter. I met him once. He seemed nervous, scared. She sent Ben an email, anonymous, hinting at what she knew, asking for confirmation. A few minutes later, a reply came. I can't talk, Ben wrote. They are watching everything. But you are right. The company is a house of cards. The deal tomorrow is their last hope. They forged the collateral documents. Forged the smoking gun. The deal closes tomorrow, I said. How do we stop it in time? The deal is contingent on the infusion of capital from the merger, Chloe explained. If we can prove to the other party that the capital is not coming, and that the collateral is fake, the deal will collapse. Who are they? I asked. Chloe looked at the documents. An investment firm, Apex Global. The closing caving is scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow at the Crestwood Enterprises headquarters. Then that's where we need to be, I said. We spent the rest of the night preparing. Chloe organized the evidence, creating a dossier of irrefutable proof. As the sun began to rise, we were ready. The next morning, we drove to the Crestwood Enterprises headquarters, a towering skyscraper of glass and steel, a monument to their arrogance, built on a foundation of sand. Chloe wore a sharp business suit. I wore a simple, black dress. I wanted to look them in the eye when their world crumbled. We walked into the lobby. The security guard looked at us suspiciously. We are here for the 10 a.m. closing meeting, Chloe said, her voice calm and authoritative. The guard geeked his list. Names, Chloe Carter and Allison Carter, she said. The guard looked confused. I don't see your names here. We are representing the primary investors, Chloe said, holding up the dossier. I assure you, they will want to see us. The guard hesitated, then called upstairs. A few minutes later, he waved us through. We rode the elevator up to the top floor. The doors opened into a luxurious office suite. Evelyn, Robert, and Liam were sitting at a large mahogany table, along with 30 men in expensive suits. The investors, when they saw us, their faces turned pale. What are you doing here? Evelyn shrieked, standing up. Security. Get these people out of here. The investors looked confused. Mrs. Crestwood. Who are these people? The lead investor, a man with sharp eyes and silver hair, asked. Mr. Harrison. They are nobody, Evelyn spat. My son's former fiancée and her father. They are unstable. Chloe walked calmly to the table. Mr. Harrison, my name is Chloe Carter, and I am the source of the capital infusion that this deal is contingent upon. The words landed like a bomb. Liam stood up, his face desperate. Chloe, don't do this. Please. We can work this out. It's too late for that, Liam, Chloe said. Mr. Harrison looked intrigued. What do you mean the source of the capital? The trap was sprung. The Crestwoods promised you an infusion of nearly $1 million, Chloe said, opening the dossier. That money was supposed to come from my inheritance, as part of my marriage to Liam. A marriage that was called off yesterday. The investors gasped. Mr. Harrison looked at Robert. Is this true? The capital is not secured. Of course it's secured. Evelyn lied, her voice shrill. The marriage is still legal. The marriage is being annulled, Chloe corrected. And the merger agreement is void due to fraudulent pretenses. She handed the dossier to Mr. Harrison. These documents detail the true state of Crestwood Enterprises' finances. They are bankrupt. They have been embezzling funds, evading taxes, and lying to investors. She paused. And the collateral documents they provided you. They are forged. Mr. Harrison opened the dossier and started reading. His face grew grimmer with every page. "This is outrageous," Robert shouted. "These are lies. Fabricated evidence." "They are not lies," Mr. Harrison said, his voice cold. "These are bank records, emails, and the original collateral documents. This is massive fraud." He closed the dossier and stood up. "Mr. Crestwood, the deal is off. We will not be doing business with criminals. Expect to hear from our lawyers and the SEC. The investors walked out of the room, leaving a stunned silence behind them. The empire had crumbled. Evelyn sank into her chair, her face ashen. "You did this," she whispered, looking at Chloe, her voice filled with hatred. "You destroyed us." "No, Evelyn," Chloe said. "You destroyed yourselves. Your greed, your arrogance, your cruelty. They were the architects of your destruction. We just provided the demolition permit." Liam was crying silently, his head in his hands. He looked up at Chloe. "Chloe, please? What are we going to do?" "I don't know," Chloe said, "but you will do it without us." We turned and walked out of the office. As the elevator doors closed, I saw Evelyn staring at me, her eyes hollow, her face a mask of defeat. The mistaken address had torn down her house. The fallout was swift and brutal. The news of the collapsed deal and the fraud spread like wildfire. Crestwood Enterprises' stock plummeted. Their assets were frozen. Within weeks, Evelyn, Robert, and Liam were arrested. They lost everything. Chloe and I slowly rebuilt our lives. The ordeal had brought us closer. Chloe used a portion of her inheritance to pay off the wedding bill and establish a foundation in Mary's name, dedicated to supporting LGBTQ youth and their families. A week after the confrontation, Chloe received a call. Marcus, a major real estate developer and a rival of the Crestwoods. "Ms. Carter," he said, his voice smooth. "I heard what you did to the Crestwoods. Impressive demolition job. I'd like to offer you a position at my firm, senior counsel. We value integrity and ruthlessness." Chloe accepted. Her career skyrocketed. One evening, about a year later, I was working in my workshop. I had started woodworking again, finding solace in the smell of sawdust. Chloe came in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She sat on a stool, watching me sand a piece of oak. I stopped sanding and looked at her. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. "I was just thinking about the wedding," she said quietly. "Sometimes it feels like a bad dream." "I know," I said, "but it brought us here, stronger." I looked at the navy blue gown hanging on a hook in the corner of the workshop. I kept it as a reminder of the day everything changed, and of the strength of my daughter. "You know, Chloe," I said, touching the soft fabric, "I used to think that being Allison meant I had to give up being your dad. I thought I had to choose between my identity and my family." I turned to her, tears welling up in my eyes. "But you taught me that I don't have to choose," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You showed me that love is not defined by gender or by labels, but by the actions we take, the loyalty we show, the sacrifices we make." Chloe smiled, a real, genuine smile. She hugged me tightly. "You're not a mistake, Dad," she whispered. "You are my hero." We stood there holding each other, the scent of sawdust and the memory of roses filling the air. We had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. We had built a foundation of love and acceptance that no one could ever destroy. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.